Hello, and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Maheen Mausoof Adamson. Dr. Adamson is the founder and CEO of Soof Solutions. She is also a clinical professor at Stanford Neurosurgery, and she is the director of research for Women's Operational Military Exposure Network Center of Excellence, and she is the senior scientist for rehabilitation services at VA Palo Alto Healthcare System. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Maheen Mausoof Adamson.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for having me. This is going to be fun.
Maheen, I am so excited to begin. You know, when I was first doing the research, your background is so incredibly impressive. And then just now, right before we got on, you just have such an amazing personality, so much energy. And so I cannot wait to begin this particular podcast episode. So if we could start maybe with an introduction and a general background of yourself.
Sure. I think you gave a really nice introduction about where I am in my life right now. And it's really wonderful to hear it from another person. I'm like, wow, that's me. Okay, cool. But it's been a long journey. As you know, I'm originally from Pakistan. I came here when I was 19 and just went to one school after another. I started at a community college, actually. I did some classes there for about 2 years and then went to UC Irvine. I did 2 bachelors there in women's studies and in neurobiology. And I was lucky enough to get into a very good lab there as a lab assistant, where I did some animal research. We used to study the auditory cortex and figure out how it could be trained on a certain tone for operant conditioning in rats. And I ended up really, really falling in love with neuroscience there. And Irvine's the right place for falling in love with neuroscience. They have some really good neuroscience programs. And in those days, neuroscience was considered like, wow, amazing. You're going to study the human brain. And are you crazy? And I wasn't crazy, but now it's like so many of my students want to do neuroscience because it's such a cool, and it is the most amazing major you can do. Because it's so diversified, right? It's like diversify your portfolio, diversify your major. You can do anything you want in terms of you can go into physics, computer science, sociology, even cultural anthropology. It's all related to neuroscience, in my view. And then from there, I went to USC for my Ph.D. and then got the opportunity to work with some really good mentors, and then transferred to do a postdoctoral fellowship at Stanford. And right after I finished my fellowship, I was given a job at the VA Palo Alto. And so I had both those things hand in hand for the past 20 years, Stanford and VA Palo Alto. So I'm very blessed. So yeah.
Absolutely incredible introduction and your educational background. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed. And what you have been able to build alongside of all your accolades in academia. I do want to spend a good portion of this podcast speaking about just the incredible and impressive work that you are doing at Soof Solutions. Now, I would love for you to begin just with like the background and the journey of why you started this particular company.
Yeah. So I think what happens, this is going to sound really, someone told me this a long time ago, and I don't know who it was. Maybe it was one of my mentors. They said, always dress for the next role in your life. It's a very interesting thing to say, right? So and I took it literally as in, dressing for the next role in your life, but also think about the next steps in your life. Always plan, always be hungry, right? And people used to say that as like, oh, well, you should be satisfied, but there are different personalities. And my personality is not the type to just sit and be satisfied with what I have. My goal is, what can I do next? And that's just my personality. And I think what happened with my work, I have a very challenging job. We study the human brain, and we also work with the veterans. And my number one goal is to provide for them and make sure that whatever we research is clinically translated to help people in need. So if there's a highly innovative technique out there that's being used at Stanford or it's being used by Sutter Health, it has to come to the VA hospital. It has to be accessible to the veterans because they're the ones who need it the most. So as we moved along my path of being at the VA, being at Stanford, having my own lab, running centers, doing all this stuff, the best thing a scientist can do is to publish a paper in a very highly acclaimed journal, is to get asked to speak at, at amazing places like Davos Economic Forum and stuff like that. The impact that you can have by creating a company that can put things in the hands of the patient and they can actually use it every single day is a very different type of an impact. And I realized that about 5, 6 years ago when I was like thinking about what should my next step be? My next step was, hey, I'm always going to be a scientist. People are always going to look at me and say, oh, she's the one in the lab coat. But I've never really, I was that for a long time. And then I stepped out of it because I can get onto stage, onto something, explain people what I'm doing and get money for it to do it better or to do it on a larger scale, to collaborate with people, to network with people, to bring things together, to do things on a global scale. So when I did my biodesign faculty fellowship, which was at Stanford, and they asked me to come up with a commercial idea, I came up with this idea of helping people, giving voice to the voiceless, which is people who can't speak. And the reason why is, as you know, I talk a lot, but it's because my father was also a big orator, big storyteller. So is my mother, actually. I think I get it from both sides. And when he had aphasia, it devastated the family. And it devastated me more because I knew what was going on in the brain and I couldn't help him. And it stuck with me. It really stuck with me. Like when you want to say something, you know you want something, it's just a glass of water, but you just cannot make the other person understand it. It's so frustrating. It steals your identity away and you become depressed and you need something in the hands of my mother who is uses her phone and that's what she needs. She needs something on her phone or something on her iPad, like nothing extra. So I came up with this idea and around the same time I was like, no one's gonna really believe me when I say I want to start a company. They're gonna be like, well, you're a PhD. What are you doing? Like, and so I'm like, I need to learn the vocabulary. I need to challenge myself. And it was not easy. So I enrolled myself in the Masters of Healthcare Leadership program at Brown, which opened my eyes. And this was during COVID. And it's an excellent program. And that, alongside with the Stanford Biodesign, made me understand the business side of things, the marketing side of things. All this vocabulary. What's a business plan? How are you going to scale your company? How are you going to do this and that? Surrounded myself with people who understood not just the science, but how to take a product or the scientific idea and make it according to what's needed out in the public and then launch it. So it's been a big journey and it's been a learning curve. And I'm still not the best at all those things, but I can talk the talk. I don't know if I can walk the walk, but I can definitely talk the talk.
No, Maheen, I cannot believe it. I got chills when I went onto your website. And I just want to say this one particular quote because it is just the impact that it really has and the demonstration of what you're doing is just truly remarkable. So, quote, when my father had a stroke, I watched him struggle to tell us he was in pain. As a neuroscientist at Stanford, I had spent 20 years studying the brain, but I couldn't help my own father. That's when I knew what I had to build. I Please elaborate on that. That gives me chills.
Yeah, I know it's very emotional for me, and everything I do has to come from the heart. It's passion has to be there. I remember the first time I took a class on some of these business things, and we had an incredible professor who was really teaching us how to take our commercial idea, how to take our scientific idea and make it commercial. And all the people who were sitting in the audience were either MDs or PhDs, older people, not like in their 20s. And he looks at us and he goes, none of you need this right now. None of you have the time to do this, but you're here because you have passion and you want to make this company. And that's exactly true. I have a job. I have kids. I have all this stuff. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because every time I see someone struggling to speak, that especially older people who are suffering from ALS, from stroke, from MS, and they're shut down, or locked down, they have this look in their eye. It's a cloudy look. It's as if they're looking at you, but they're looking through you. Because you can't, and I remember that look, and I remember the frustration my mother had, couldn't understand my father, married for, gosh, I don't know, 45 years at that time, and just couldn't understand him. And every single person, the thing that separates us from animals, that which in my view is our language capability and the fact that we walk on two legs and all that. But we communicate with each other. Our society has evolved because of our language capabilities. Every single person deserves their last words. Every single person does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they write it down, whether they look at you and say it at the end, or whatever it is. My father did not have his last words. He couldn't speak for almost a year before he passed away. So, and he was in his early 70s. So for me to provide that avenue of a human leaving Earth, just give that space where they can just say, I need water, I love you, whatever it is. And that's what I want. I want that to be so ingrained in people that if they cannot talk, soof it. Can't talk, soof it. That's what I want. Like, I want it so bad.
I could feel your passion around it. And I think there's something to be said about pursuing like more of a like mission oriented company where you have that sense of passion and that sense of purpose personally to be able to go out into the world and to help others. And I want to spend some time on exactly what you're doing. Could you explain in perhaps just layman terms how your particular product helps patients?
Sure. So I was, I was just talking to you right before we started the clock on this program. I was saying that my daughter said to me, Mom, you're always on the clock. I'm always on the clock because people reach out to me from across the world. I spoke to someone at 10 p.m. last night who was a father of 4-year-old girl who has the Rett syndrome, which is a motor coordination disease, right? It's a developmental disorder. And he wants to try Soof. So parents are reaching out to me and they want to know how to use it. Now, my product is right now on Apple apps. You can download it. I can connect you with my programmer and you can start using it for free. And what it is basically, we're also going to be moving it to Android because it'll open up an entire different market in the rest of the world. And what I wanted to have the space in the market that patients and caregivers can immediately go to. They don't have to wait for insurance. They don't have to wait for any big device to come to their house. They don't have to take time to train, and it's not cumbersome. Most of the stuff that's out there is for developmental problems, autism, there's very little stuff out there for older people. My technology can be used on the entire developmental from like as soon as you're able to understand how to look at something and want something or touch it, you can use it. Or people who have ALS or a stroke or anyone who's intubated in the hospital or in rehab. So I was talking to him and I've talked to several other people. It takes time to train and learn other devices because they have their own eye trackers, their full devices. The other thing also is that it also makes you feel like you are something special. You're walking around with a different device. With me, you didn't walk around with an iPad. You were walking around with a phone. No one's gonna know. Like, I mean, whatever. I can be doing whatever I want, right? So it's an app on the phone and on the iPad. And the whole idea was to use AI guided gaze tracking so that you can increase human interaction. I'm not doing something that is like phenomenal, like, oh, I'm creating water out of, if they point at water or some, if they point at water with their eyes or with their fingers, that message is going to go from the iPad to the caregiver's phone, and the caregiver is going to come and give it to them. And if the caregiver delays it, the caregiver is noted. There's a needs assessment like, oh, it's been 5 minutes, you have not given water to your patient. So if this was being used in a nursing home, we can actually have a needs assessment score for them, and the nursing home and the rehab centers can actually use it as a way of saying, hey, we have a qualitative and a quantitative method of assessing whether the person's doing their job. And which is, I think, a really good thing. I would want that if I was putting my dad in a home. I want to see that there's technology that my dad's needs are being met. So I think we have that space in the market that allows us to be easily trainable, quick access, already on the device, don't have to buy a new device. And it's constant monitoring. So it's not like you are doing something. We are connected to your provider and to the caregiver. So there's constant monitoring. There's also biomarker assessment, which your eyes are being measured, your head is being measured. That's data that's coming to us, and we can kind of monitor it and give you data on it after you use it for a while. And it's also personalized. And a lot of other apps are doing that. Instead of you putting like an AI image of a glass of water, it could be my cup, the one that my daughter gave me. It says, Mom, no matter how hard life gets, at least you didn't have ugly children. So
you you all have an amazing sense of humor, man.
this is going to be my cup if I have a stroke. This is the cup I want.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I just like I appreciate humor because like look at the work that you are doing. It's so impactful. And I have to ask you, when you were starting this, like even just like the time frame, the moment, could you walk us through that when it was actually you witnessed the impact that it had on the patient and you knew, wow, this was truly working and this was going to impact many lives. Like walk us through that.
So the first few, any startup, when I had this idea and I was working through my mentors at Stanford and at Brown, I've said this before in podcasts. My original ideas, the sketches were terrible. It was just like, oh my God, this is like not good. And I would laugh. I would look at them now and I would laugh at them. But I was slowly moving through it. And then the best thing you can do when you're doing any kind of accelerator or startup is they tell you to go out and interview people, right? And they tell you to like talk to all your customers. So my customers were, nursing homes, people who work, caregivers who work with patients like that, because you can't talk to the patients themselves, right? I also needed to talk to speech language pathologists. I needed to talk to like CEOs of companies who were doing stuff like this. And I ended up attending a lot of stroke circles, online and in person. I went to a lot of rehab centers. I spoke to a lot of speech language pathologists. I really put myself in the mix of it. We did an NSF uh, ICOR thing, which took about 6 months. We spoke to like 100 people in like 3 months or something. It was like pretty intense. And what I realized was I would go to an ICU and I would see iPads hanging on the wall and no one's using them. It's very difficult to bring change. It's very difficult to break the system or cause what's called a pivot, or how do you say it? There's a word for it in marketing. It's very difficult because they have a system. The nurses have a system. Everyone has a system, and they don't want to to learn something new unless it's really innovative and it really helps them. I remember sitting with one patient who was a stroke patient, older gentleman, and his wife. And I remember showing them this, and I made the wife sit in another room, and I had him use it. And the way she ran from the other room into the place where her husband was when he wanted that glass of water, and he looked at, she had tears running down her face. She's like, I got it. I got it. I just got it on my phone. And I'm the goon. I'm a total goon at this. I'm crying with them. I'm like sitting there.
Chills here, just like,
I was just so, and he's like completely nonverbal, and he was crying, and then I was like, and of course, I talk a lot. I'm like, oh, if we can get enough data from you, we can develop maybe an algorithm that can help us detect if there's any changes in his health in his eye movements, which is something that I've been doing as a neuroscientist. I've been advising companies in which they use these amazing all the eye movements we have, because my background is also traumatic brain injury, and we can tell whether the brain is functioning at a correct level or not if you've just been hit or if you have other things going on. And I really want to bring that into Soof, but we need data for that. We need to collect a lot of data from each person once we make revenue and people are using it, so that we can actually look at how many things are you looking at every day? What is the length of time it takes you to choose a picture on the screen? And is it according to your age, is it normal? Or is it the same as it was last week? Are you actually changing the way you're choosing things this week? I mean, that can tell a lot, because eyes are part of your brain and they can tell how your brain is kind of functioning. So there's a lot of potential in this, a lot of potential of like similar things as you're using on your apps on the phone, how they can actually comment on what your brain is doing. So I remember saying that to this lady, and she literally jumped from her chair. She's like, "You're going to be able to tell if my husband may have another stroke?" I said, "I can't promise you that, but that's where we're trying to go." So it's just that level of service, which maybe if I was an MD, I wouldn't feel the chills, because MDs get to do this all the time, especially if they're in ER. And, if you've seen that show Pit, everybody's helping each other running. And I'm like, man, I should have been an MD. I would have felt that, but I'm not. So this is the only way I can get that, feeling of satisfaction.
I mean, I think that's absolutely remarkable. And, you have such a profound background in academia, and then now you're more into innovation. And so I'm just curious, that transition and now kind of juggling both now, what has that been like? Have you been able to take maybe some certain skills from your research and transfer them over? Just what does that look like right now?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to also bring up is this incredible bridge that is from the academic science to commercial company. And that's very rare. I mean, not so rare in Silicon Valley, but it's becoming more and more common, because all the big universities like MIT, Harvard, Stanford, they all have these biodesign programs, all these Office of Technology and Licensing. And we have brilliant people that are coming up with all these ideas and turning them into companies. But as a minority woman, as someone who's a mom, as someone who's already running a center and has a lab, to do this is kind of, it's taxing. There's a lot going on. But the thing is, I can't break that bond. I cannot just go, okay, I'm going to run my company and forget about being a professor and a lab someone who's directing a lab, because they're inherently connected. They're connected. The idea came from that. If I wasn't at Stanford, I wouldn't have my company. If I didn't have the passion I have for veterans, who I know there's many of them who can't speak because of traumatic brain injury, I would not have created this company. And the network that I have, the understanding, the people that understand where I'm coming from, there's no way. So to me, it's like, and of course, women think in a very interdisciplinary, multitasking kind of a way. And I really dive into this in my podcast and all my talks, is that we've been doing multiple things for eons. That's what we do good. That's how we are. We're very different from men in that. Like I told you, I have to go right after this to deliver a check to my daughter because she needs it at school, and I'm going to do that. And, and I think you just, in a way, like you focus on what you're doing at one point, do it really well, and then move on to the next. So it's kind of like a diversifying, whatever you're doing. And to me, it's like a amazing match to be able to bring your network, bring your science and your research into your company. Now, I'm running 3 pilots right now, trying to, and they're all in different stages, pilot studies. One is doing really well, the other's starting to come up, the third is like non existent. How do I bring all of 3? How do I make them all happen? How do I make sure the data is being collected in different pilots with the right data sources? What kind of variables am I going to be looking at? How am I going to be researching them, who's going to do the work, where's the student going to do all of this? So all my research capabilities are then going to be used in running the pilots. So there's different ways and then I don't know all the answers. I have an amazing team. I have a very amazing head of marketing growth. I have a financial advisor. I have a chief operating officer. I have a wonderful speech language pathologist. I have programmers, all these people. I don't know the answers. I reach out, I'm like, can you please help me with this? And they know the answers and they help me. And I know that I can ask them and my advisors and the angels who help me because they believe in me, my angel investors. They believe in me and they also know that I will be able to give them back whatever they're putting in. So
Thank you so much. I mean, I just think about, like you said, I mean, the network that you have built in academia and how that really has like all your, like as you were just mentioning, just your team and also like your background, as you mentioned before, but going back to school, understanding the business side, the marketing side, understanding the consumer's needs, and how this sense for continuation of learning no matter like where we are in our education, that we could always continue to be learning. And I love that. I love the fact of how you have been able to mold really what can be very different environments, almost just the almost like that private sector in academia, but how you're able to mold that together and
absolutely.
bring, yeah, and bring those networks together, I think is incredible.
And I think the time is right for that. And again, it has to be with your personality, right? Like a lot of people would say, like there are 2 things that people say about me. They're like, "You're insane." Um, family members, friends are like, "Oh my God, you do so much," and I'm like, "It's like we live vicariously through you." There's if there's no drama in Maheen's life, she's probably sleeping. Um, it's like, and I'm used to that, I'm used to that. And I'm used to them like being like, wow, you did this too. This is amazing. Can you do, so that's one thing. The other thing is I mean, I do take a lot of breaks. I do have fun, but it's the drive in you that keeps you going and it's not necessarily good for you. So you have to make sure that you are healthy and that you are energetic. And I have kids, I have things to do. I have people's mouths to feed. I have to have that kind of personality where I'm like, go, go, go. Um, and I enjoy it. I don't, I think that everybody has a different level of leadership in them. And some people like to lead in a more, micromanagement kind of a way. I don't lead that way. I have always mentored people in which there's one postdoc of mine, one fellow said this about me because I told her to tell someone else about how working in my lab is. This is a long time ago. She said, working in Maheen's lab is like, go in, learn everything on your own. And then if you need help, she's always there, but she's going to throw things at you and you won't know what to do and you'll be freaked out. And then she'll be like, you don't want to do it? I thought you want to do it. Okay, you don't want to do it. I'll just give you something else.
But you know what? As you mentioned that, I mean, the lived experience, there is nothing like actually putting yourself out there. And whatever it is, I always tell even like students, it's one thing to have that textbook knowledge, but it's another thing to get that real world lived experience through an internship. And I think when you're able to mold both of those together, just a general understanding, but then what it was like in that lived experience, it's a whole different realm because you actually apply that knowledge and like, wow, like this definitely worked or this
It's
certainly
very
didn't.
hard.
Yeah.
So challenging yourself and overcoming your fears is the number one thing about leadership, and not be afraid of failure. It is so important and it's so hard to do. Now, the one thing is when I was younger and I would be so scared. Like one poster presentation a month ago and I'll be like working on it, scared out of my mind. And I used to stutter when I was younger. I still do sometimes when I'm on stage. And I remember my friend telling me, hey, and I came down from stage and I asked her, hey, did you hear me stutter? And she goes, yeah, so it makes you human. What's the big deal? That I never forget that. It was such a cool thing for her to say. And for me, it's like, okay, I have my own fears and I'm stepping into something. I mean, the people that I've met in my life, brilliant people. And I would be scared to talk to them. My knees would shake. And I remember the first time I went to DC for some congressional hearing and we were in the audience, like I was shaking. And I remember this because I was like, fine. And then so the example I gave you about my postdoc fellow, she and you don't realize this. You realize your own inferiority complex and your own like, oh, I'm shaking. But you may be causing that in someone else. And I saw one of my postdocs stutter in front of me, shaking. And another person, I was at a conference, like, Dr. Adamson. And I'm like, what? Why are you scared of me? Like, why are you scared of me? You get to that point where you're causing that in someone else. And you realize that and you're like, of course, I have kids and now I know that I can be very forceful. I can be, aggressive and I can make someone fear me. And that's when you step back and you're like, hey, nope, that was not my intention. And you just start, that's why I make a lot of jokes and make people feel at ease because I see a journal article, I see a project, I see something, and I'm like, hey, in my mind, I have like 5 people that I'm working with. I'm like, this person might be good for this. I'll send it to them. They might not want it. I want to have a relationship with them where they can straight up say to me, I'm too busy right now. I'm not going to do it, even though they work for me. I want that relationship. I don't want like, oh, I'll do it. I'll just say yes because she's my boss. Nope. If you don't want it, you tell me. I'll throw something else at you. I'm not going to stop. But
Maheen, as you were speaking, I think about the time when I was growing up and I was in college and how very shy, very reserved I was to even go up to a professor and ask them a question. And so I think later on in my life, now that I am an adjunct professor, but I try to, as you were mentioning, just that human element of public speaking is like one of the top things I think human beings are actually fearful of.
oh,
And
yeah.
yeah. And so we have like a project in one of my particular classes where it's strictly just public speaking, getting up, doing an actual pitch. But I think there's so much good to that, whether they ever go into entrepreneurship or not. It's the general public speaking skills. And I just say that because it really is when I introduce these assignments, it's about even that human experience of letting them know exactly what you were saying, that I was there once. I get nervous even at the first day of class, even to this day. It's like 40 of them, one of me. I have to remember 40 names. So I tell them that. I'm like,
Oh,
you're a little bit nervous, right? On the first
oh,
day.
yeah. I get nervous when everybody has like, this like, how is it like when you have to go talk to the dean or talk to your boss about, like I have really good mentors. Like I have friends who are my mentors, like and at my work, they watch out for me. They give me advice. It's like, okay, you're going in. So ask them what they want from you rather than tell them what you could do for them. It's like, you tell me, what do you want me to do?
This- I love that you mentioned that. And I love how you were speaking about that human element. Even when we were talking right before, this was like the first time we were talking, but how we could be very intense in our personality and our careers, but how like you've been like making me laugh with humor like even before. And so I think that's something that really allows people to connect, to really feel that,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I always like to say that comedy and people who make other people laugh or witty, the smartest people in the world. They really are. Like, I love watching them, the way they go from one end to the other, and your brain can actually follow that. It's storytelling, it's language, it's communication,
That's so
right? It's so cool.
well, and even like with the storytelling, what's so funny is that my mind will go 100 miles per hour. Like even as you're speaking, I'm picking up like keywords and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that. But oh wait, she just said this. I have to go this route. And so it really is, it's about even being as you're speaking. It reminded me of the self-awareness. Like you were saying with your students that they started stuttering because they felt the nerves. And so I really do. I think that's something that throughout the years, I've been more mindful of even how I come across. Cause you're right. I mean, we were talking about this, but it's like my career, I'm so incredibly passionate about that. For some people, it may be like, whoa,
It's
like,
so,
even,
it's so, yeah. And then my brother, I have three brothers, and sometimes, like earlier on, they would say, "Don't tell people you're a neuroscientist," because people's attitude would change. They're like, "Oh, neuroscientist," and I'm like, "What? It's just like any other job."
well, and you know, to your point, like as I was doing the research before and I'm reading your background and I'm like,
I guess.
oh, wow. And I'm thinking like, okay, I have zero medical background. I can't ask her any medical questions because this
No,
is
no, no. It's very important that, I mean, I'm not an MD, I've said that. I have like very close friends who are MDs, and every time I have something, my brain starts thinking in a very research way. And my friend is like, no, 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 no. The symptoms of this is what you need to do. I'm like, damn it, we need a study on this. So like,
it's so true though. I think that's what's like really interesting is that you know, as you do climb the ranks, how different areas, if you will, like different sectors, how they communicate and how, like I said, I love how you just mentioned that because you have such a tremendous background, all the degrees, but yet you're always continuously learning. And I love how you stress that point because I really do. I feel like the world that we live in today, how important you know, yes, the titles and the prestige, but then also the technology is changing so rapidly, which kind of leads me into my next question for you. Like, since you have begun, and this could be even within your academic career as well, but what have you seen changed in your particular area of study? I know that's a pretty broad question, but when it comes to technology, what you're seeing changing or has already changed that kind of shocked
I
you?
mean, obviously, the biggest thing that I find, obviously, is the way AI has taken control of a lot of people's way of doing things. And I'm fine with that. There's a lot of stuff that AI can do that's really well done, right? But you it's the people's trust in it that really scares me. Um, so there's a whole side of AI which is the science side, right? And I was doing deep learning models 15 years ago of the brain, right? So we were looking at um gosh, when I got into my PhD the first year, we looked at how we could create different algorithms for dyslexic children to read better. This is long time ago. So deep learning, different types of logistic models, multivariate analysis, very the basics of what AI is now, right? Now AI is like this machine that puts all of it together and, does it with a lot more data. It's also environmentally not there. The other thing is it allows you to not learn, which makes me very like your whole brain is changed. The way it processes language, the way it learns from the outside environment, because it was already changing because of the way our kids are into computers and into entertainment, gaming, and all that. So storylines are shorter, understanding like everything has to be done in a minute for TikTok reels, right? And the reading of long sentences is different. You can't just go to a library to look for a book. You go and you get what you want and you come out. I remember going to library and walking through the stacks and learning about anthropology and Russian literature before I got to stem cells. So, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of learning. So our brain is evolving in a very different way, which is fine. I mean, our cognitive processes will change as well. Like instead of the the way we learn, it'll be visual or whatever, it's changing. But I want people to question, and I'm probably the worst person to say this, because if you send me a video of music that's made by AI, I probably won't be able to tell the difference because I'm Gen X and I'm like, oh, this is really good music. And it's like, I'm sorry, this was created by AI. I'm like, oh, damn it. So, but at the same time, I say ask questions, and I need to do that myself. And for the science part of it, we are very careful about it. When we're writing grants, when we're writing papers, we have to check a box that says I've used Cloud, I've used Gemini, whatever. And we have to do that. I know that I can ask somebody to do a literature search for me, and I know when they send it to me in 4 days and it looks different than someone who sends it to me within half hour because they used AI. So in AI, you have to check your facts, and it's the same thing with all the news and stuff. So be sure to use it when you need it, and like in the sense they use it as a template, but constantly check. So that's definitely changed a lot. Um, People can tell when things are AI, so they know you haven't put in any effort. So I don't want my company to be defined by AI, because we are not an AI company. We use AI, but we are not an AI company. That's a huge difference. We use it so we can have better human communication. So we are not using it so that we are an AI company. Like it doesn't, so all of that is like, it's like a buzzword, which really sometimes bothers me.
That's so true, because I really do, like, we've spoke a lot just about communication, and even before the podcast we were talking about like different generations and how they're communicating with different technologies, even the introduction of technology at younger ages with some of these generations. And I know like your particular area, as you had mentioned, like just with even with your company, but giving voice to the voiceless, and just the topic, like general overarching topic of communication. But where do you believe we are headed right now with communication, that we should be more mindful of, like when it comes to looking at different generations and the speed upon which technology is infiltrating some of these younger generations?
Yeah, I mean, I had mentioned it to you before we started recording that there's definitely a push towards the old ways, the classic ways. I know students that turn off the AI in Google when it gives you the AI summary. They turn it off. They say it's wrong. It pushes you to read it when they say they found problems with it. Um, in communication, I mean, this is a larger question, because I think the way COVID and this generation, they are not comfortable with each other, in the sense that they have groups of friends, but outside there's less of an understanding of the social structure of friendships and relationships, and communication is definitely not there. There needs to be more there needs to be more communication. There needs to be more um, one-on-one open conversations rather than just a very superficial. There's a it's I think it was there's a quote that I read somewhere that chemistry is not the issue. Understanding depth is. It's the depth of a person that you need to understand. And I think that that is lacking in the new generation, because there's less of a communication. So there's less people dating, there's less people having relationships, because they feel that that their core is their core and nobody is able to access that. And I think that it's really the way that it's the technology, it's the way that their lives are. They're fast. There's a lot of information thrown at them. There is actually also so much knowledge thrown at them that their brain is not ready to actually understand the pros and cons. And I'll give you an example of that. There is a new kind of, it's not new, but it's new that I had heard of. It's an eating disorder called orthorexia, which is about fear of eating anything unhealthy. So when you know that something is bad for the environment and you know that something is bad for your body, you just force yourself to eat everything that is so healthy that you actually lose weight. Because so the communication part is that they're reading too much. There's so much out there that they're getting. Okay, don't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. Can't eat beef, can't eat milk, can't do this. In so much that it actually causes an eating disorder. That's also communication, right? It's like too much there. But when you're young, when you're 16 or when you're 22 even, your fibers in your brain are being pruned, right? It's like, the bushes and you have to prune them. That's the fibers in your brain they're still developing. But developing, not necessarily growing. They're growing, but they're also being pruned at certain levels. The tracks are being built to go to the frontal lobe, to this and that. And you don't have that, the all of the views that you can balance and figure out that, okay, yeah, I shouldn't eat this, but I also need it for my body. And it's okay to have a burrito once in a while. It is. It's okay to have a burrito. It's okay to have a burger. I mean, it's just, to me, it's like communication is so important.
That's so interesting. I have not heard of that yet. And I mean, even as you're speaking, I had this app. I got rid of it, but a lot of people actually use it. It basically tells you like the ingredients in a product, and like
you take a picture of it. You take a picture of it and it shows it to you.
Yeah. And so I just remember I was doing like hair products like shampoo and all that. And I got to the point, Maheen, where I'm like, I can't use any of my products that I write down.
Like, what do you want me to do? Like,
he's like, no, not anymore.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I mean, I come from that. I come from originally, I mean, obviously Pakistan, but also I come from that era where we were using microwave stuff because there was no time. So my daughter's like, why don't we make, roti or tortillas at home? Like, cause I don't have the time. I'm not just gonna, he's like, oh, there's so much plastic. And I'm like, I don't care. I need it. Right?
You know what's so interesting? Like just talking about like parents and so forth is this idea. I distinctively remember when I was in college, I got on this like Diet Coke, light this, light that, all of this stuff. I returned home and my father, like, cause I was under his roof and I did not have a job at the time, but he's like, no, he goes, we are not going to be eating this light stuff. He goes, eat regular. And I thought what's really interesting is my grandmother, incredible, like 90 years old in January. And it's so interesting. She had all natural stuff like growing up. And she's in great health, like knock on wood, but like even mentally. And it made me think about, obviously, and I know you definitely know this, but like even when I drink like a Diet Coke or so forth, that there are obviously, ingredients that had to make it to where it's good or it's decently like, you'd be decently willing to drink it. So sometimes those ingredients, of course, have different side effects that you never took into consideration, but
Exactly.
it's diet. Do you
Exactly.
know what I mean?
There's so much like microplastics or, just little things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, I have habits that are from Pakistan. Like I would cook something and I'll like cover it up with something plastic. And my daughter's like, no, that's carcinogens. I'm like, oh, okay.
My husband does that.
I mean, I'm a scientist. I should know this, but I'm like in the middle of stuff. I'm like going through stuff. I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And this.
And literally, I heard that 2 nights ago because I have the plastic broccoli and I nuke it. And he's like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, come on. I was like, it's so convenient.
Because it says on it, you could do it. I'm like, I'll do it. It must be safe. No, it's not safe. This is the question we have to ask. And that's communication. So too much communication can also be really, really bad, right? So at least from the public, like these girls and boys are hearing it, like, so we have to be aware of that. And then no communication, you know how that is. And like any leadership class you take, they tell you what level of communication is the best. It's in person is the best. Like we're doing the best we can right now because we're doing an online thing. But if I was in front of you, that would be even better. Anything that is just text or is like, it loses all its emotional meaning. So one of the things we wanted to do with Soof is to also record mood so that we would have emojis and you could say, how do you feel today? And you could look at it or point to it, and you can do it 5 times a day if you want. But we wanted to keep the mood as a way to manage like how the patient is feeling just by emojis. And then that would help with like, it's a measure for us to see how it's helping if their needs are being met, how is Soof helping them have a better mood.
It reminds me even of text messages. And like you said, as far as even being in person, but it's those social cues, the nonverbal social cues that you obviously don't see, and how that really can wreck communication when you think somebody's coming like full force, like in an aggressive mode, and when in fact it's a text message and you misinterpret it. And so,
Absolutely. And email's even worse. And the funny thing is working in a big academic institution and working in a big government institution, what I've learned is like sometimes when you collaborate and you do networking, what happens is that you are wanting to get people to do stuff for you, but they don't work for you. They're at the level that you are at. Not your boss, not anyone. People who are like in the same, like my colleagues, and I need a favor from them, or I need to have a better appointment at the MRI scanner for my patient and it's all clinical and I have no research time or whatever. What's the best way to contact them? You don't send them an email, you don't send them a text. You either walk to their office or you call them on the phone. You want to talk to people in person every single time. Like I would get this, and my ex used to say this: you get a huge AT&T bill, let Maheen take care of it. She's going to reduce it to 50% by calling them. I'm like, but this is, I didn't know that I was doing this in a foreign country.
I love this. This is like so, oh my gosh, keep going.
I'm like, all my dirty laundry out. So no, but personal things are really important. And customer service is important, right? Customers are always right. If I call AT&T and they do this, then I've been their customer for 25 years. I mean, they're good. They always give me, okay, well, this is the first time you did it, okay, we're going to not charge you for this. And then I do it again.
It's on you, right?
I'm having brain fog moment. Sorry.
So true. Oh my gosh. But there's something to be said about in person. I've always said that. I mean, I remember when COVID was happening and we were coming out of COVID, and my chair would ask me like, hey, do you want to be in person or do you want to be online? And I'm like, no, like I'm so much better, Maheen, in person. And you know what I mean? Just with my person, I talk with my hands. You could see me. I like, my tone changes. And I think that's another key too, is the tone, not even just the nonverbal, but your tone.
The
And
tone changes, yeah.
yeah.
It's really important. And I think this is a side thing, but I'm having so much fun. When I did my first experiment inside the MRI scanner, it was a task related experiment in the sense that we were looking at how the brain does digit processing and relating it to people who have dementia and people who don't. So we would put people inside the MRI scanner and we would scan their brain while they were doing a digit ordering task. So I would say 6, 5, 4, 3, and you would order them. So when you're lying in the scanner and you're doing a task like that, you have to be perfectly still. And so your brain is, being scanned. And one of my patients was this Latina lady. And when I first met her, she was talking to me like you and I. She was talking a lot using her hands. And I looked at her and I said, you can't do that in the scanner. You're going to have to keep your hands on the side and do whatever you, because when I was talking to her about digit ordering, she's like, oh, like 8 and 10. And she's moving her finger. I'm like, you can't do that when you're in the scanner. You're going to have to be still. He's like, okay, I'll be still. So we put her in the scanner and I'm like watching her and she's totally still. And I'm like, great. We look at the scan and the area of her feet were completely blown up and it covered every other thing because she was using her feet to do what she was doing.
Are you serious?
And it blew. Like, I was like, why is she using her motor? Where is she moving? I can't see where she's moving. And she was just like, tick, 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 tick.
Isn't that something though? How there's a lot of people out there that really are like animated and you don't realize how much you move your body, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Isn't that interesting? And when you lose control of it because of stroke, you can't use your hands and you can't speak. I mean, it's like a compound effect that you can't communicate. So to me, it's like communication is like a whole body thing. And all we're trying to do is to provide one way for them to communicate when all of it is gone.
That's absolutely incredible. I want to ask you, I guess it's just more of a broader question, but in relation to what you're building, but what are maybe some particular leadership lessons that you have learned specifically from building a mission-oriented company?
I think I've already mentioned this. The failure thing is really important. Like when people ask you how your company is going, right? When you have a startup and you are used to working with bigger institutions and having like and people ask me, and I'm not ashamed to say it's going okay. I mean, it looks great from the outside. We're getting customers, trying to get customers, trying to apply for conferences, going to a conference very soon, trying to put our data together, trying to get more data. But money is always an issue. We're trying to raise as much as we can, and it's very difficult. Like we're doing a crowdfunding right now, and we are on Start Engine, and we want people to go and do crowdfunding for the companies because we need money to scale and market and do our pilots. And we've had some really good luck, but we still need a lot of people to fund us. And so it's on Start Engine, and people can go and own a little bit of the company for as little as $500, right? It's going to end at the end of June. And it's a difficult thing when people ask you because you're like, I wish I was doing better financially, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time and you can't put it on yourself. That's the hard part. Like women are very bad about that. We're like, oh, it must be me. I need to work harder. I need to white knuckle through this stuff. I need to do this and I need to do that. I'm like, no, you need to just be quiet and watch Netflix. This is my double personality. I'm telling this to myself, not to you. I'm like, okay, just shut down, be quiet. And
Because I am obsessed with like, as we were speaking about it before, but like your drive and your determination and your passion for what you do. But then on the other side, Maheen is just playful. She's humorous. Like, I love this. I
yeah,
love
I hope that that's the only thing that can keep me going because otherwise the negativity is real. It can really bring you down. Depression is real. All of these things are very real, and mental health is a huge issue. And people don't know enough about it. People, my late colleague, always Nolan Williams, used to say, we know how something works before we know how it works. So, and that's important because it'll work, but you don't know how it's working. And so that's one of my biggest challenges is like, okay, so believe in yourself, but also it's okay to doubt yourself and it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to say, okay, I'm done for the day. I need to chill. And how do you know that? You know that when few things. You have to learn your signs of your body. Like I feel like women were not, at least in my generation, were not taught how to listen to their own bodies. That gut feeling you get, the gut brain axis, the feeling like, oh, I'm going to throw up. My knees are weak. And there's pain in my body that is making me go in a bad mood. I'm lashing out at someone, or I am not focusing correctly and I'm making mistakes. I misplaced my, this is such a small thing. I always put my keys in the middle pocket of my bag. Always. Because I know that's where, when I don't do that, I know I did it out of stress. I put it somewhere else in my bag. Any other pocket, I hardly ever do that. But if I do that, it's because I was in a hurry and I was doing something and I almost, that's when I know, okay, fall back. And I forget things. I'll forget to do it. It's just like, it takes a long time. These are small things that you have to always notice and learn from mistakes and not do them again. You can do other mistakes. Other mistakes are fine, not the same one.
I love what you're saying though, because it's not taught. Like I could remember growing up in sport and how my father would always tell me like, Court, you need to rest. Like I could even tell like he was never heavily involved in sports, which I think like kind of ignited my passion for the sport. But he would come in and I could remember like if I was doing a skill like 10 times and I literally could not get it, like, when he was speaking, like, pay attention to what's happening. Like, it's late at night. You've had like literally like a 6 hour workout. And I think how that relates to what we're talking about, I think it's very applicable to our own, whether it is in a career, like you said, just even being self aware and reflective about how hard you're working. Like you said, are you forcing something? Are you not able to focus? But those are kind of cues to be
It's very
mindful.
good. Yeah. And you're close to your father. I was very close to my father, and that's why the company and all of that. But I mean, really good mentors help you. And I remember one of my mentors is at work. She is our program officer. She's known me all my professional life, really. She's such a huge supporter of mine. And I remember her name, Stacy Motor. And the funny thing is, she always tries to direct me, but in a very gentle way. Like I would be kind of running circles around something, some scientific idea, right? And she's a program officer, MBA and all that. And so she'll look at me and she's like, this is great that you're looking at another thing that's scientific, but think about whether your expertise applies to it or not. Because if your expertise doesn't apply to it, you're not going to succeed. And that's true because in science, you have to show that you've done this before. This is your expertise. Like I am learning a lot about the female reproductive system because I am now directing research for a Center for Women's Health. However, I'm a neuroscientist and I have a great team that helps me with it. And I always say I know a lot less about below the neck because I'm a neuroscientist, but because I am able to apply things from the brain to the gut, I can talk about the gut brain axis. But it's the slight deviation. Like, think about how, and I think that's the kind of stuff you have to appreciate about other people because you can sit and just kind of run circles in your head. But like your father told you, just sit back and think about what would work with you.
Love that. Maheen, I have had an absolute blast with you
I know,
on
it's been fun.
I am dead serious. Like this, there has to be a part two to this. I'm just like, I just love this. I mean, we have spoken about yes, part two sequel, 100%. But I would love to round out this podcast episode with perhaps even a positive message or a positive quote for our community.
I'm deeply, deeply amazed right now at all the incredible work that women are doing. I mean, obviously men also, and men have their own challenges, very, very big challenges, I think. One is to understand that equity and equality, of both genders that is happening right now in terms of, the rise of women taking over leadership. And I think that despite the challenges, despite the mental health, despite the economy, despite the wars, despite all the stuff, I feel like there's a surge of really understanding why things are the way they are and acceptance of what they can and what they cannot achieve. I feel like the dreams are real. Like they're not like this white picket fence. I'm going to own like a state and whatever. They're the people that are now moving up and doing their work in academic or corporate or whatever, their dreams are environmentally friendly. They are equal, have a lot of kindness and compassion and empathy. And I think they are doing better for the world than at least Gen X could. I feel like they are just more aware. They're and it's at the cost of their own health, I feel like. That's right. There's a lot of like doubt and mental illness and all that because they know so much. They know so much. There's so much thrown at them, but I feel like they're making the right decisions. And I'm really happy about how they are moving forward in their world. And I love mentoring them. And I just wish that they would come to me. A lot of them are very confident, a lot of them are not. And I want them not to be afraid. I want them to overcome their fears in the sense that just be themselves and ask questions. Do not, it's okay to doubt yourself. It's okay to ask questions. You don't know everything, and nobody's going to judge you if you don't know how to use the coffee machine.
Absolutely love that message.
Yeah. And ask why you're doing something instead of just doing it. And I was not like that when I was going through all this stuff. I would like, oh, this is my job. I must do it. This is how I do it. Never ask why. I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm like, mentees are like, why are you asking me to do this? I'm like, oh shit. Okay.
And and I think like we were talking before, there is differences in these generations, and we talk about just in general, of course, with generations, but different values, different perspectives, and how those do change and they evolve, and how do we adapt to that? So I think that's, I mean,
Yeah. And it's okay to have your time to yourself. Like if someone texts you for work on a Sunday evening, I'm okay with it because I'm from a different generation. My daughter wouldn't answer it. My daughter's like, I don't care if he's a council member. I'm not going to answer that. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I am. I'm like, but and I think too, another thing that comes circles back around, Maheen, is just the once again, it's that sense of like passion behind what you do. Like I was here this weekend, like working at my computer. My husband's out; he's doing his fun hobbies and stuff. And there's something about the time goes by so quick, and I'm willing to work like, and that's just me personally. I'm not like giving advice for people, but like I don't mind doing stuff on a weekend. So
I
it's
don't either. Yeah, I was working last night. I was working yesterday afternoon, but only snippets, like 2-3 hours. Then I was out, hanging out with my friends. But then certain things are due. The national organizations and academic institutes don't care if it's a Sunday or a Saturday. There's a deadline and conference deadlines and abstract deadlines. It's like 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm like, damn it, 9 o'clock. So, it's like, it is what it is. And you just do it and then you go have fun. It's all there.
so true. Well, Maheen, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor and joy to have you on.
Thank you. You also are a bundle of joy. It's really nice. You have a very, very bright outlook on your face and on your life. I just love it. So keep it up, please.